Hello and welcome. It's The Chat. I am Manny. Now, it must have been 1988. I set my eyes on this Nigerian superstar entertainer. And since then, that's 33 years. That's a long time.
Daniel Wilson Orunabuka, popularly known as Mr. Ragamuffin, is a renowned Nigerian singer, songwriter, composer, sound engineer, actor, politician, businessman, and a social activist. He is one of Nigeria's most influential performers, whose music is regarded as having a profound impact in defining Nigeria's contemporary music. Born on November 25, 1963, in Tiko town of the southwest region of Cameroon, Daniel had his early recording and performing career in Nigeria in 1983, right after he finished his secondary school and gained entrance into the University of Port Harcourt to study theatre arts. He had already built for himself an image and a following of fans who were going everywhere with him. Daniel also co-presented a reggae program on radio called Root Vibes in the city's first and foremost FM radio station. He acted as a manager and produced the first music effort of Daddy Fresh and Daddy Shoki when they were younger. He had other successful collaborations around this time, as well as with the younger artists like Duncan Mighty and several other new generation artists such as Two-Face and Timaya. Outside of music, Daniel Wilson is associated with an array of successful business interests. He is a formidable businessman who retains full creative control over his music productions. He has also acted in several Nollywood movies. In 2004, he teamed up with his siblings to take up the management and expansion of a bread and confectionery production chain left behind by his late father, a move that took him completely away from the entertainment circuit. In 2008, he was awarded a Nigerian Music Award for his profound impact on popular music in Nigeria. He is a celebrated national icon who is still making music today and has millions of fans worldwide. Daniel Wilson is married with 6 children.
There was a time there was this bit of controversy, and it's only you that can talk about it. Where are you from?
I am from, I'm an Ijo by tribe.
Really?
I'm from River State, part
Really?
of me is in River State, part of me is in Bayelsa State. But I'm basically a River State man, yes.
What I heard was that you're Cameroonian.
Oh yeah, there's some truth in that too, because I was born in Cameroon.
Oh, yeah.
Yes, I was born there. My father was one of those who sojourned to trade. And during his period of trading, you know, he married my mother, and that's it.
I know that, in 1988, your first appearance on stage was the Lekki Sunsplash.
When I came into Lagos, I had very few friends, but the few friends were able to, it was Bisi Olatilo and Danla Dibako, they were able to plug me into Ade Adefeso's Surprise 89. And they weren't expecting much. It was not supposed to be my show, But right after Shino Peters performed, the crowd, Fela was to perform next. And because I was such a new artist, I didn't have all the paraphernalia of a major artist. So I didn't have a vehicle, a boss, all that standing and in waiting. Fela was kind. Fela Nicola Portet, may his soul rest in peace, of blessed memory, called me into his car and said, look, come and stay here with me. You're a star. You're going to perform soon. And I went on stage from his taxi. He was using a painted taxi. From his taxi, I was called onto stage and I went to perform. It was surprising to me too, because it was the first time I was testing my brand of music to the Lagos audience. And the crowd was silent for a minute and they went into uproar. From the time they went into uproar till when I finished performing, it was electric. For me, I still remember that with nostalgia, And just when I turned around the stage to say goodbye, it was time to go. The crowd, like in one movement, moved from the front of the stage to the back of the stage to cover me. It was then I realized the use for Fela's, embrace that moment. He sent his bodyguards. They practically picked me out of the crowd, put me in his taxi, and we sped up the gate.
See?
The point I was trying to drive at then was how I got to that concert.
Okay.
Because it turned out to be that one of those vehicles pursuing us was the promoter of the Lekki Sunsplash event. Dapo Adelego. It was his brainchild, it was his concert, and he stopped us on the road. Fela looked at him and said, oh, okay, I know him. So Fela stopped. And he came out and he said, look, Daniel, we want you for the show after, of course, after properly paying his respect to Fela. He said, look, I want you to come perform for us in Lekki. The Lekki show is tomorrow, is 2 days after. I said, that was 23rd and the Lekki was on the 25th. And he said, you have to be on that concert. Look, you know what? I'm going to give you 250,000 naira right now. He looked into his boot and brought money. Remember, I said I was newbie in the first concert. I came without a cover to play. So my band that performed with me were members of my team who were just faithful, who weren't performing for money. It was just for the love of the music. And they were surprised to see 250,000 when I brought it to them. I said, guys, guess what? We're performing at Lekki Sunsplash. So for us, it was the reward that we thought we could get in Lagos, given to us in the short few days we were in Lagos.
I found your music at that time very entertaining. I mean, you were also a great entertainer. Amongst your very, the colleagues around you then, just you and a few others who could articulate your thoughts very well.
I appreciate it.
And you became a ragamuffin king.
Yes.
What is that, where did that come from?
It was a mental thing. Ragamuffin then turned out to be the brand of music that the Jamaicans were now playing. They had moved from ska to rubber-dub, from rubber-dub to rocksteady. From rocksteady, they were doing ragamuffin. It was a dancehall thing. Everybody was coming out with the word ragamuffin and all that. And for me, I embraced it, but I said to myself, look, my music can't exactly be called ragamuffin. It still had the African tint in it. So the best thing I could do was adopt ragamuffin as an attitude, not as a brand of music. So for me, ragamuffin was a non-conformist attitude.
How much money did that bring in?
We never make no money from music, but we still felt good. It was just that. It wasn't for the money. I don't know what we were thinking. I wish it was for the money then. I probably will have been better off than I am today,
Who influenced you musically?
It was a lot of Mighty Sparrow.
Okay.
And a lot of Rex Lawson. Mm-hmm. And there was also Ian Henshaw. Mm-hmm. Then, of course, when I came into Lagos, I embraced Fela strongly. The future of African music. I went to perform in France sometime. I met a Frenchman. He was singing every song of Fela. I was sitting down with him. I felt like a stranger. I felt insulted. When I came back to Nigeria, I went to buy everything Fela had performed. Every album he had performed. But of course...
But you never filtered into your music.
No, it couldn't, because then I was already too instituted with the music of the Caribbean. When I did 1986 album, Daniel and the Lions then, it was still what influenced me. But by the time I came to do my 1989 album, which was an album titled 999, they had already started propping other artists. There was Mandatos, there was Raskimono, there was Majek, so the music was now a lot more of reggae. So when I decided to do my 1990 album, which was what really shot me to, national and some level of international fame, it was titled Mr. Ragamuffin. It was at that time I decided I was going to show a little bit of a difference. I wasn't just going to deal with the music of that environment. I was going to project into the future. So I moved the tempo up. I was fast-paced. I was dancehall. I think what I did in my 1990 album, at the risk of sounding boastful, is what they're doing in 2021 today in Nigeria.
Really?
I think so. I like to think so. It's my personal opinion.
But I mean, you eventually pulled the plug in music and decided to do other things.
Yes, I did.
What was the real reason why you had to?
The kids were coming. The children
Really?
started coming. My first son was born.
How was that going to stop you?
The music wasn't paying the bills anymore. With the need for a lot of pampers, a lot of stuff to give to the kids and the mother, I discovered that music was not going to pay my bill. I had to do something else.
What was
First
that?
place I did was, my first branch off into the secular world was advertising. But as time went on, my father, fell ill. My father was a baker, a major baker. He owned bakeries within the River State axis, a lot of them. And he was falling ill, so I had to take over. And I was basically, in fact, he called me one day and said, you know what, this bread business, I would love for you to stay longer than I am going to leave. And I'm already ailing at this moment. I'll be glad if you could stop all that noise you make, yeah, everywhere, and come back and run the bakery business. And I said, really?
Did you not agree with him that it
No,
was
I didn't agree because I
doing?
felt that music was what I lived for. My father was, first he was an elder in the Jehovah's Witness organization. So for him, music entertainment was a direct access to promiscuity, to immoral conducts of all kinds. I never drank, never smoked, still don't drink, still don't smoke, all my life. Yeah.
Interesting. So where did you meet your wife?
In Lagos. Incidentally, I lived all my life in Lagos. So I'm completely a stranger in Port Harcourt, but my main stay was in Lagos. Mainstay in the sense that it sustained me. Lagos kept me. Lagos fed me, buttered me, bred me. So it was way after I've left the music industry, I was already taking to my father's advice, producing
your
bread,
father's
footsteps,
instruction
yes.
and
Producing
baking bread.
yes. I had bakeries.
Did you also do ice cream also?
Yes,
I thought I heard
yes.
that you did something
in fact,
like
I think I had one of the first indigenous fast food success, in terms of franchising, because people actually bought franchises from me and opened Wilson's that were not exactly mine, not from the Wilson. But, the name was Wilson's. It was a family business supposed to be.
So what are you doing these days?
I am...
You have branched away also from the bread business?
No. The bread is family tradition. I
Okay.
still keep a lot of small bakeries, But, my younger brothers came to take charge and they did a lot better than I did. So at some point I let it off for them.
So all you're just doing is sitting down and collecting money?
Not exactly. This is not one part I like to talk so much about, but at some point I moved into politics. I moved into government.
Really?
I walked...
With your eyes open?
With my eyes open. I dabbled into it. And it was because of some incident in the bread business. I used to have meetings then, sitting down with Dangote, discuss price, cuts and all that. And when somehow he was able to get, the monopoly to sell all the flour to me, and I couldn't import flour directly from Canada like I used to, I found the prices go out of my control. I found out that bread became very difficult, very expensive to make. Those days we used to sell bread for 100 naira market price, factory price, and the people sell for 130, 150, sometimes 18 naira thereabout. So when the prices rose, the only price that will justify me selling and making money was 400, 500. And no Nigerian was prepared for that kind of shock, to go from 100 naira to a 500 naira bread. So it needed a gradual rise. But the people who were existing then, the bakeries then, had to close. And that's how come that's what killed Mr. Biggs, the popular brand Mr. Biggs and its bread, Nourish. And Leventis too had value bread. They were my contemporaries. That was the only indigenous bread while they were multinational, owned by multinational. But somehow they all died. And I kept mine. And I said I was going to keep it. But at some point, my accounting was showing that I was running a loss. I was running a loss.
And while all this was going on, you were busy making babies.
Ah, yes. I think that
there are 6 of them now.
6 of them, yes.
Is that the end?
I like to think so. At this
You're not
age,
sure?
I'm not
That's
sure
all right.
if I want to have one more.
Okay.
Except that luckily for me, my wife is young enough to want to pull one through.
And good looking too.
Thank you, sir. You've been admiring my wife. I'm glad.
Never again shall we let them mess with our economy. God, we never felt so much frustration and anger in Nigeria. People are hungry and killing each other.
Pick a question.
Okay. Oh, there.
Have a dip in there, and
That's
wow, that's brilliant.
Well. How would I compare the music industry now to my days? Seeing how music stars are cashing out today more than what it was in the 80s. I think they are doing excellently well. That's what we should have done in our time. The industry didn't have the structures we needed. You can't be sure. I mean, you were dependent on a record label manned by an individual to tell you how much your music sold. There were no automated systems. So the individual could sell 1 million copies and come back and tell you, well, you only sold 300,000. There's nothing you can, this is word against yours. And they will pay you for 300,000 when you probably would have done 1 million.
Who are you accusing now? Record companies?
The record companies then. It wasn't the record company, it was the industry. The industry didn't have the structures. It was why banks didn't invest. It was why a lot of people didn't put money into that industry, because it was too dependent on individual integrity. And there were too many people without integrity in the business.
You didn't obviously see a future in music, did you?
No,
because
I
after a
didn't.
while you stopped.
Yes, in 1993, when the Abiola's June 12th issue started, music took a nosedive nationally because people were more interested then in surviving than entertaining themselves. At that point, I saw music dwindle, though I still managed to do a lot of corporate events because I was embraced by the Nigerian corporate, the corporate sector. But again, in between, after my sojourn with government and politics, I did a few opposition songs.
Never again shall we let them mess with our economy. Hey, God, we never felt so much frustration and anger in Nigeria. People are hungry and killing each other, yet the government doesn't care. Never again shall Nigeria be ruled by a dictator. Never again shall the naira lose value like tea paper. Yeah.
I want to talk about life after politics, or is it over, or you're just beginning?
Well, I think I have come to understand that this is the time for me to use all of the attributes that I've gathered over the years. I'm a musician first and foremost. And I came to very close to politics at the highest level. I worked very closely.
When you say highest level, what level?
I mean, short of mentioning actual positions, I worked very closely with President Goodluck Jonathan. I worked very closely, even with his current government, I worked a bit. I worked with the Yar'Adua's government. So in that capacity, working and understanding how the presidents carried out their day-to-day activities, I think I came to understand what politics in Nigeria is all about.
Do you think we're doing well with our politics?
I know that at the moment it's a very foreboding situation. It's downcasting to think about the politics of Nigeria today. But I still strongly feel it's a process we must pass through. I think we are still developing, and it's important for it to be so rotten for the next man to recognize the difference between rotten and green.
Right, so what's your opinion about the state of the nation?
Nigeria has never been this divided. And it's not, it's the most visible thing to recognize this government for having caused so much division, so much suspicion amongst brothers. Because of the current government, there are times when we have small arguments that ordinarily we will have trashed off as brothers, but immediately you see everyone take side, and I'm north, you're south. In fact, immediately you see them insult and curse you. I mean, it's not been so long just 5-6 years ago, 2014, 2015, that we still had so much trust and so little insecurity. The amount of change that has happened in these 6 years could have been averted if there was a leadership that did not promote them. Now, when I mean leadership promotes, it's not just in the policies, it's not just in utterances, it's not just in the famous body language of our president, but by actual actions. People do things that shows that the government have decided to pitch themselves against the people. And the government is ready to support certain abnormalities against, the people. And in supporting these abnormalities, they were supporting certain sects and certain people. It's amazing.
How do you look forward to 2023?
Well, 2023, the possibility that there will be a change in government is exciting. But believe it or not, it's already so bleak. The prospects are so mad by the activities of this current government that it's not an excitement to look. It's not something to look forward to with excitement. You look forward to it with some level of trepidation, some fear.
I was asking you where you met your wife. You didn't get to answer that question, did you?
I wasn't dodging from it either, but clearly I said in Lagos. I had finished my music days, so she wasn't particularly a fan of Danny Wilson. But I was driving past someday and I saw her and I decided to follow her to her location, where she lived. I found where she lived and I went back home. The next day I dressed up properly.
What's that action you did? You were...
I met her and just knew she was my wife. It was that I just...
As you were driving past?
Yes. I just saw her. She walked into her cab and she drove, a cab, and they drove off and I followed the cab. I got to her location. They stopped. I took some time to see and be sure that that location was home for her. And then the next day I came and said, send someone, please. Go and call this auntie. She's like this, she's like that. And when she came, I spoke to her and said, look, you know what? I think you're the kind of girl I would have married. You're just a little too young for me. But, over time, we may just get married.
Any of your kids involved in music?
Unfortunately, no. The closest...
obviously you did not encourage them, did you?
I did not discourage them either. My last child is a great singer. In fact, my first son, Graham, he is a fantastic guitar player and a singer that brings tears from your eyes. But he refused to sing.
What 5 items will they be?
I think naturally, as long as there's a cell site there, the first will be my phone.
Okay.
Because I need to reach home. My wife is my wife with me.
No.
I'll die without her, so I need a phone to communicate constantly. I'll need a phone. I probably may need a lot of soap and toothpaste because I'm a cleanliness freak.
Oh, really?
Yes.
That's good.
I will hate to be dirty no matter how bad it is. I won't mind some survival item to ward off wild animals and all that. A gun, a knife or something, preferably a gun with as much ammunition rounds as I can. I think the 4th thing will be a gateway vehicle. A boat to come back, or a chopper to fly back, or something to take me back because I won't be on the island for always. The 5th one will be luxury. The fundamentals I have mentioned. So the 5th one, which is luxury, if I will insist on the luxury, is a tent. That will be luxury, to cover my head and all that. I probably will not have needed it because I like to remain in the elements that I am exposed to. But since I have a choice of a luxury item, I'll pick a tent.
Let's leave it there.
Yes.
Danny Wilson, thanks a lot for being on the program.
It's an honor to be with you, sir. Because my era in the music industry, the 1983s to the 1993s, was anchored by very strong journalists, presenters, what they call OAPs and all that today. and you were a leader of that pack. It was the Willie Egbers, the Bisi Olatilos, the Danladi Bakos, the Mani Onumonos, the Craig, is it Craig? Yinka Craig, forgive me. It was all of you, and you were family to me. For me, even though I did not interact day to day, you were the features I saw. My music was played, my names were mentioned by all of you. So for me, you were instrumental and integral to my growth. So I am delighted to have had this opportunity.
Thank you for growing up as well.
Thank you for growing up. We all do grow up, sir.
That's been Danny Wilson.
Thank you.
Of the 80s
Yes.
and the 90s. Well, it's been fun. On the charts this week, I am Manny. See you next time. The Chat is produced by Channels Television. You can watch it again online. Just visit our social media platforms: Twitter, YouTube, Facebook.